support to... Great. Ukrainian voices support newcomers across Europe, helping them navigate legal and social systems and maintain dignity. And immense gratitude to the Mission of Ukraine for your patronage. Mission of Ukraine to the EU serves as a vital bridge, bringing the concerns and aspirations of Ukrainians to European institutions and aligning diaspora contribution with broader European objectives. And of course, thank you for Ukrainian House for hosting us here today. And together, these partners create a platform where humanitarian support converges with economic opportunity, women's empowerment, and strategic planning. Our discussion today will examine how temporary protection can evolve into stable legal pathway, and how Europe can leverage the diaspora skills for mutual benefit. We will address the critical role of women leadership on social cohesion and building an inclusive society. Our aim is clear: to ensure that contributions are not interrupted, whether Ukrainians remain in Europe or return home when condition allows. By working collaboratively, we can transform a story of displacement into one of empowerment, resilience, and shared progress. And let me pass the floor for the opening remarks to Oksana Diakun, Deputy Head of the Mission of Ukraine to the European Union. Please.
Good afternoon to everyone. I would to thank you all for joining us today at this very sunny day in this very special venue for us as the Mission of Ukraine to the EU. And I think that it is quite symbolic that one of the first events in this new space that we have here in Brussels is dedicated to the role of Ukrainians in the EU. So just yesterday marked 4 years since the EU directive on temporary protection has been enacted. And thanks to this directive, more than 4 million of Ukrainians, mostly women and children, as was already mentioned, were able to find here in Europe a safe refuge from war after the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion. And the fact that 4 years after we are discussing here how Ukrainians can contribute to Europe, to the economy and societies of EU member states, in my view, is a confirmation that it has been a success story, both for Europe but also for Ukraine. And I would like to say that Ukrainians, whenever they are in Ukraine, fighting or helping to our defenders or making Ukraine run every day, or if they are in Europe, working, integrating, volunteering to help Ukraine, they are united, in my view, by very particular features. And they are resilience, which is very famous, but there is another feature, and it is sense of agency. We don't accept what the fate brings us, we change the fate. So in 2022, we changed the fate, we defied all odds, and we fight back. And I would say that after the 4 years of full-scale invasion, Ukraine is quite in a good position despite very hot winter, because we have been able to develop very resilient, innovative defense sector, which is currently providing more than 40% of all weaponry that we are using on the front line. It is our own production. We are inflicting very successful deep strikes in Russia's territory, which are basically working better than than sanctions, and they are good addition, what we call kinetic sanctions. We are, and if you have seen media today, after what is happening in the Middle East, several countries, including the United States and some of Gulf countries, they are interested to get Ukrainian knowledge and Ukrainian interceptors against Iranian Shahed drones. So we have become stronger. While Russia is entering a phase which is quite, which brings a lot of uncertainty whether it will be able to continue the war of attrition at the current space, because basically Russia would need another 4 years to conquer Donbass at the current pace, and we are most probably sure that it will never happen. Well, why I am mentioning all these security issues, because it is very much linked to what is happening with 4 million of Ukrainians here living in Europe, because they are looking into this news and deciding whether they will be staying, going back, how do they plan their coming back to Ukraine. So security and how the war ends, it's a matter whether Ukraine would be able to reunite with its community, which is now residing in Europe, or whether they will be making this very much needed contribution into Ukraine's post-war recovery and reconstruction or not. But also let me mention a couple of words about our work here as a mission to make sure that current temporary protection is as efficient as possible and as helpful as possible to the needs of Ukrainians which are currently here in Europe. So as you might know, temporary protection has been extended to March 2027. However, we also have in place a Council recommendation from September 2025, which encourages EU member states to look for transition to another alternative statuses out of temporary protection. So for us, it is important that we as a mission, we have been part of this process to make sure that our view, our input is also reflected in these recommendations, and also that that unified and coordinated approach among all member states is ensured in this process, because the last thing that we would like to have is fragmented picture in different member states with different level of rights for our citizens. So well, coordination and unified approach are key. And also we are advocating very much in our contacts with the Commission that and member states that during this transitional phase to the new statuses, that all the rights that our citizens enjoy here in Europe, I mean, access to housing, to education, to healthcare, that they are preserved. So this is part of our daily job here in Brussels, and something that we are very much vocal. Another element that I would like also to mention, although temporary protection ends in March 2027, so we don't know whether the war would end by March 2027. So we are also talking to the European institutions how to ensure, if there is a need for Ukrainians to seek refuge, to continue seeking refuge beyond Ukraine, how we ensure that they can find this refuge. So this is another important strand of our work. And also, I would like to mention that as a government of Ukraine, it pays a lot of attention to make sure that all of Ukrainians who are currently in Europe under temporary protection, that they have as good as possible access to all services in Ukraine, to the information about opportunities in Ukraine, and can preserve the link with Ukraine. And one of key instruments in this regard for us is the network of unity hubs. You might have heard about it. So we have already very well advanced work on the establishment of unity hubs in Spain, in Germany, in Czech Republic. The works are underway for establishing such hub in Stockholm. So that we will continue working, and we are very much happy that we have full support of the European Commission and also our partners in member states for this initiative. And just to reiterate that I'm very happy and I'm very much looking forward to the discussion about how Ukrainians can contribute also contribute more, because they are already contributing to the economies of EU member states. Yesterday, I was at the event also dedicated to the temporary protection, and European EU envoy for Ukrainians in Europe, Ms. Johansson, has said that she sees Ukrainians as a bridge, the bridge between EU and Ukraine and our advanced team Europe, let's say. But I see Ukrainians in Europe also not only as a bridge, but also as a sign of hope that Ukraine will recover, that Ukraine has, thanks to the solidarity, unprecedented solidarity of Europe, has been able to preserve its human capital. And our work is to create conditions that this human capital has all conditions to realize all the potential as best as possible. And also to help us to bring Ukraine to the European Union. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much. And for all our speakers today, we would like to present the book which Women Leaders for Ukraine published together with British journalist Andrew Roble. This book about Ukrainian women, and name of this book, Ordinary Unusual, which is all of us. Yeah, we do our everyday work, but we support Ukraine. And please, Ms. Oksana. Yeah. And I would like to pass the floor and invite for opening speech Dr. Imogen Sudbury, IRC Belgium Executive Director and Senior Director for Advocacy and Influence.
So good afternoon, everyone. And I would really like to start with a very heartfelt thanks to the organizers of today's very timely and important event, to the Ukrainian Mission, to Women Leaders for Ukraine, and to Ukrainian Voices. And really for inviting us to be part of it. It's a great honor for us too. So 4 years after the EU activated the Temporary Protection Directive in March 2022, millions of people displaced by Russia's war against Ukraine are trying to rebuild their lives across Europe. Temporary protection gave millions of people safety, but now it's time to move beyond emergency response and help people secure stable and self-reliant futures. In close collaboration with local partners, the International Rescue Committee that I'm representing today has been supporting people affected by the war, both inside Ukraine and across the European Union. Our engagement reflects our unwavering commitment to ensuring protection and durable solutions grounded in human rights, dignity, and the meaningful participation of all of those affected. The 4-year mark of the war and the timeliness of the event today leave us in no doubt that Ukraine and the Temporary Protection Directive remain very high on the EU's agenda. The recently adopted Council conclusions on transitioning out of the Temporary Protection Directive provide an important framework, of course. This commitment highlights the shared responsibility between the EU member states and national leaders to support Ukraine and to uphold protection standards across Europe. However, much still remains to be done. To ensure a smooth and dignified wind down of the Temporary Protection Directive, there remain a number of very important actions that we are working towards. Transition pathways, for example, are still not clearly defined. voluntary return programs are lacking, and information provision is insufficient, leaving people unable to plan for their futures. This risks in particular leaving vulnerable groups behind. Uncertainty continues to affect daily life, from housing to employment to education and family stability, at a time when it's clear that conditions still do not allow for safe and sustainable returns. So ahead of today's panel discussion, which I'm really looking forward to hearing and participating in, I'd like to just share some of our key recommendations for EU and national policymakers. Firstly, ensure there's no protection gap. The transition process should guarantee uninterrupted rights and legal certainty for current beneficiaries, while ensuring flexible and responsiveness is still available for new arrivals as the war continues. Second, establish or adapt stable residency options, particularly for groups who cannot return to Ukraine or who face significant barriers to integration in the countries where they currently are. We encourage the development of special or bridging permits so that those not eligible for existing permits are not left in limbo. Third, ensure that returns, when the situation allows, are truly voluntary, safe, and dignified, and in particular are supported by accurate, accessible, and timely information and reintegration support. And fourth, engage meaningfully with civil society and displaced Ukrainians in designing, implementing, and monitoring the transition process. Finally, I think there's already touched on today, and of course we have a great group of participants for the panel today to discuss this, but strengthening EU-level coordination and guidance under the leadership of the Special Envoy, Ylva Johansson, will be really critical to prevent the fragmented approaches that we already heard could be a risk as we go forward. So far, more than 4.5 million people have benefited from the temporary protection scheme. It's also significantly benefited host countries, again, already mentioned today. We saw also this recent UNHCR Deloitte study, which found that Ukrainian refugees were responsible for 2.7% of Poland's GDP growth in 2024, just as one example. By keeping the rights and dignity of displaced Ukrainians at the heart of policy and working together across borders and sectors, we can ensure the transition out of temporary protection is managed responsibly, humanely, and sustainably. And today's dialogue will no doubt provide a really valuable contribution to ensuring that we reach that goal. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing everybody's perspectives. Thank you once again for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Imogen Sudbury, and please book for you. Thank you. And I would like to invite for opening remark Martin Taschner, Directorate General for Migration and Home Affairs from European Commission.
Thank you. So thanks a lot for inviting me to the event today. I just took up my position on Monday. On Monday, I became head of unit for a unit dealing with a lot of things, but also was dealing there for the support of Ukrainians in the EU. So I'm very happy that this is my very first public event in my new role. And it's something which is very close to my heart, because before that, going back to 2022, I was the head of unit in the DGECO dealing with humanitarian aid in Ukraine. And this was a very important time. We worked a lot with our humanitarian partners at that time, and it was a very intense time. And I think we did everything we can all together in order to support the people of Ukraine. And it was really something which went much beyond just, I would say, doing its job or trying to do a good job. It was really about supporting the people wholeheartedly and as much as we can. And I think we just discussed it. I think the humanitarian community also did a very good job in order to support, and continues, of course, to supporting. As it was, I mean, many things were already said now. I don't want to repeat, but it is indeed yesterday the 4th anniversary of the activation of the temporary protection. And today the EU member states provide protection, temporary protection, to over 4.3 million beneficiaries of temporary protection. Many of these people are also here for now 4 years and have undertaken significant efforts to integrate in their host societies. And as we can see from climbing employment rates or increasing language proficiency, this is also done in a very successful manner, while of course much more needs to be done. This underlines that we cannot see people displaced by the war in Ukraine anymore solely through the lens of displacement. They rather become contributors to European societies and agents of Ukraine's future and Ukraine's reconstruction. We see here two very critical facts which we need to bear in mind when we talk about the future. One is that many people from Ukraine still live in what we call the suitcase mode. They are, because temporary protection is temporary by nature, but we need to have medium to long-term prospects. And secondly, Ukraine needs its people back for the country's reconstruction, but in a sustainable and phased way to allow local communities a successful absorption of those going back to Ukraine. And I think it was really after a lot of discussion with the UN member states and between UN member states that the EU basically on these aspects adopted in September last year a council recommendation on the transition out of temporary protection. We now need to discuss how to operationalize those council recommendations. We know that the current temporary protection regime ends in March 2027, and we have to have that discussion. And that discussion is a very important one, which is now just about to get pace. And the special envoy for Ukrainians in the EU, Eva Johansson, is currently doing a lot of outreach to the member states, in the member states, to Ukraine. She went to Ukraine also to talk to counterparts and also to civil society, which, as I really want to underline, will and is playing a crucial role. We have to discuss how to operationalize the recommendations coming from the council recommendation. And it is still a discussion to have. We have to bear in mind that the council recommendation also needs to be in mind the situation, of course, in Ukraine. So this is always something we have to bear in mind also. It is about also looking into still vulnerable people arriving also who would need our support. But the vision of this recommendation is very clear. We need to empower the people displaced by the war in Ukraine and to decide and to help them to build their future. In this context, and I think this is a very important part of the discussion, we should no longer talk about is it return or is it stay. These two dimensions do rather come hand in hand, and this is our ultimate conviction, how we have to bring that discussion forward. Durable conditions for sustainable return in Ukraine will vary and depend on many factors, and the situation in Ukraine will be crucial in that respect. Returns will be phased, and many will contribute from within the EU for the reconstruction of Ukraine. And this is why we encourage very much the EU member states to facilitate the transition to alternative statuses, which provides a long-term perspective to beneficiaries of temporary protection in member states. Because successful transition to other legal services is not a loss for Ukraine, but a win in skills and networks for Ukraine recovery and reconstruction. And we see already to this end that several member states have progressed in creating dedicated statuses for displaced Ukrainians. Other member states are considering such a status or adapt the requirements for temporary protection. And we also see that additional efforts by member states will be necessary to overcome skill mismatches, facilitate the recognition of qualifications, and increase the transition rates. And we really need to have that discussion and to make sure that this is done in a coordinated way. We need to be careful that we don't have very different regimes in member states, and there's an uncoordinated process where we don't really have a common regime and a common understanding and a common strategy on how this transition looks like. And a very important role in this process belongs to the private sector, which we need to engage. We're already engaging, and we need to engage further in reskilling Ukrainians and making their return home possible through very strategic investments. And as already said before, we also need to support returns with a clear interest in strengthening first and foremost the areas of returns, the local communities, and the social cohesion between returnees, so those who stayed in Ukraine, internally displaced persons, and also the veterans. We discussed already, it was mentioned, the support for voluntary return. And indeed, the European Commission is working on a concept for a voluntary return and recovery program, together with the EU member states and in coordination with the Ukrainian authorities, and in particular, the Ministry of Social Policy, Family and National Unity. And there we explore the possibilities of testing this concept in form of a pilot project when the time is right to implement such a pilot project. And we believe that the real enabler for returns will be Ukrainians' capacity to offer safe, dignified, and economically viable conditions with strong pull factors for people to return, being family relations or housing, jobs, and access to services. This is absolutely a key element on which we have to work together. And one point which was also mentioned before, and I really want to just echo that and stress that one of the cornerstones of the recommendation is also the protection of the vulnerable persons. We know that some persons, given their condition, will not be able neither to transition to other statuses based on work or education, for example, nor to be able to help with the construction of Ukraine. And the Council recommendation provides that member states should continue to provide protection to persons with special needs, and that conditions of residence consider also those special needs. So yes, this is absolutely a very important part of that discussion, which is now about to be launched. Thanks a lot, and I wish you a very good conference. I'm very happy that so many people are here, and I think there's so many things to be discussed, so I wish you a very good conference.
Thank you so much, Mr. Martin Taschner, and we're really delighted that this forum has become the first platform on your successful journey in your role. So, and now the time for the panel discussion moderated by Katerina Rябика, board member of Women Leaders for Ukraine, chair of the board for its long list of all titles. Chair of the board for the Agency of Legislative Initiatives, strategic advisor to the civil network Opora, and co-founder of H&H Labs. Please.
Thank you, Ira. Well, and I have the pleasure to serve as your moderator today. And honestly, you know, the opening remarks were so rich that I had to change some of the questions. So please, our panelists, please be prepared. With that, I'd like to introduce our distinguished panel, and I would like to invite Yaroslava Savastyanova to the stage. Yaroslava is a Ukrainian business executive and also international cooperation expert who works on the intersection of private sector development, investment promotion, please, and Ukraine economic integration in Europe. So I think that the opening remarks that were just pronounced by Mr. Taschner will be addressed by Yaroslava during the panel. I also would like to invite Larisa Marchenko, to the stage. Larisa is a partner at Yay, and she's and she is specializing in investment and business advisory with strong focus of supporting international companies operating in Ukraine and European Union, right? Great. Well, welcome to the stage. And I also would like to invite to the screen Miroslava Kerik. I hope that Miroslava is online and can hear us well. Miroslava is a legendary person in Poland. She is a CEO of Ukrainian House Foundation in Poland, and literally you can ask any Ukrainian in Poland who is Miroslava and you'll get an answer. So Miroslava, very warm welcome to the screen and to the stage, to this panel. And last but not least, I'd like to invite Alina Melnichuk, who is a humanitarian. who is a humanitarian coordinator and community support professional working with Ukrainian voices. Please don't be shy, please. Well, you know, I think that the good segue to begin this panel is really to build on the opening remarks of our distinguished guests today. And why don't we start with the private sector? Because, you know, when we talk about the private sector and when we talk about the circumstances in which Ukrainians live in the European Union and around the world, we talk mainly about two aspects. It's opportunity and responsibility, right? So with that, I'd like to ask Yaroslava, if you don't mind, to start with you from the European Business Association perspective. And it's not by mistake that I'd like to invite you to the floor first, because there were a lot said about the partnership. So no single sector can do the transition alone. And business associations are actually a huge partnership, right? You know, like maybe, yes, a success story. So from your perspective as the European Business Association, how are Ukrainian businesses and professionals already contributing in Europe? Yes, would you like this one? Well,
okay. Oh, it's even better now. Okay, I'm so loud that I can do it even without mic. First of all, it's really all about partnership, and it was brilliantly mentioned that Ukrainians outside Ukraine reach to Ukraine and vice versa. I maybe contribute here that it's not only about the bridge, it's also about a two-way street road, because we understand that Ukraine is highly needed in new investments and new inflow on the one hand. And on the other hand, we understand that private sector would like to internationalize and is very open to opportunities outside Ukraine to extend their business. Definitely already now we know that it's a huge number of Ukrainians who are outside and reside in EU. And this is, to be honest, a big asset to certain host economies on the one hand, and this is a priceless human capital for Ukraine. And of course, when we say about the price of this mobility, and here I would like to say one more time a big gratitude and a deep bow to countries who help and assist and support our people outside Ukraine. This also goes with challenges for private sector. And according to our latest research as the European Business Association doing business during wartime, 78% of companies, they experience the work shortage. This is not only because of migration, this is also because of other circumstances we have in our country, but this is definitely some structural challenge we need to address in the future as well. And Ukrainians outside Ukraine can be a big contributors and ambassadors. Also being the ambassadors of Ukraine outside Ukraine and helping another companies entering Ukrainian market in the first time. Of course, the contribution of Ukrainians already now is very clear. It was mentioned about how it influenced the economy of Poland, the same situation in Germany, and it's about pay tax, it's about rate of employment. And I believe that these figures, they will grow because a lot of EU countries, they have chosen the strategy prioritizing their learning language, skill acquisition, and then employment. And generally speaking, we will see that these figures really increase, and this is great on the one hand. On the other hand, when we look at this question from the perspective of private sector and being like the European Business Association, the organization that unites around 1,000 members from different industries, we also need to think about how they contribute to the economy of host countries who also take care of Ukrainians. And I guess that here, the most interesting and visible examples of great case studies can be the joint ventures in defense, in green energy, in telecom. just recently in 2026, it was the joint venture on Ukrainian designed combat drones. It's quantum
systems.
Yes, quantum systems together with Frontline. And this is not the isolated story, to be honest. Yes, so we in EVA, we have number of companies who are from Miltech, and they are also thinking about similar cases. And this is about creating the workspace. This is about paying taxes. This is about export of innovation on technology and creativity. But the companies who select this, you stop me when I'm too long, okay? Because it can be soon. Okay. When the company selected, generally speaking, this path about internationalization and opening opportunities outside, it's not easy at all. So there is no shortcut, to be honest, for Ukrainian companies entering European markets. They all face the challenges of EU standardization, of cross-cultural differences and adaptation, all taxes, regulation and framework, and all this that another companies will meet also entering Ukrainian market, and of course tough competition as well. But when they succeed, and we have a lot of cases of such success, they really create value for economies of EU countries as well.
Thank you, Yaroslava.
Okay.
One more thing that I want to ask you, because you've presented, there are many Ukrainians in this room, and I think that you agree that we, no matter what, we stay positive, right? Yes, that's all about us. We stay positive, no matter what happens. Here, I still like, I'd like to ask Larisa to chime in here. I'll come back to you, Yaroslava, with more questions about the barriers. Yeah, because yes, we do believe in partnerships. Yeah, and we think that we are all putting our heads together to make it work, whatever area it is, And if we see challenges, well, we don't see challenges, we see opportunities. But there are regulatory barriers. There are compliance barriers for businesses to scale and grow in the European Union. Can you please talk about it a little bit?
Yes, of
Thank
course.
you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And again, thank you for inviting me to this forum. Great opportunity for me. So first of all, I would like to start. I liked your question. Yeah, I like how you put it.
It's a good beginning.
But yeah, but I would replace the word barriers with opportunities still.
Right.
Yeah, from my career, for 17 years, I was working in Ukraine, explaining mainly foreign investors how to enter Ukrainian market, yeah, and how Ukrainian market works, and what are the rules, what are the compliance rules, the taxation rules, the reporting, financial reporting, and statistical, and many others. Since 2022, I live in the EU, so first 2 years in Germany, where you understand how the rules, how the strict the rules are. I still keep those 2 files of paper documents. I brought them with me to Brussels because I still need to report and file the tax, my own tax return. And still I have to return to those paper documents and remind me, what I was doing and earning maybe, and what transactions I was involved in into 2023, because tax authorities in Germany are interested in that, and you have to provide paper, for that. Now I live for the 2nd year in Brussels, and here I act exactly as one of the speakers said, as a bridge, as a bridge between Ukrainian businesses and European businesses. I still work with my team who are in Ukraine. Actually, I just returned from Kiev yesterday. That I was participating in Denmark-Ukraine Investment Forum. So a lot of correlating with what Yaroslava was saying.
I will replace you in Ukraine in a few days. I go to Kyiv very soon.
So you see, we are already acting as bridges. So basically now I more work in European market, and I help Ukrainian businesses to come to Europe, to different countries, to explain them how the rules are working. Of course, it's not me alone. I work for Ernst & Young. This is a powerful organization. We employ more than 400,000 people. In Europe, it's about
it's
half
the size
of
of Vinnytsia, one of the regional centers in Ukraine.
So basically, my role is to enhance the support for Ukraine, to explain also our colleagues in the Y network what Ukraine is, what are the opportunities, what our companies are looking here. Of course, in defense sector, of course. I'm now involved in several cases in defense sectors. Never thought before the war that I will find myself in defense, but now I'm supporting several Ukrainian producers of ammunition, of drones, of armed vehicles in their endeavors, in their plans, to enter European market. And basically, again, coming back to your question, for barriers versus opportunities, I would say, again, as example of Ukrainian market, the investors, foreign investors, never considered Ukrainian market as like full of barriers. What stopped them, in particular, such investors as Germans or US investors, is the word which we all hate. I know that, the corruption. So basically, when the business works without rules, or somebody wants to breach the rules, this stops the investors. When the rules are there, they are complied with, they are in place, they are understood, they are explained, and the business works according to these rules, it's possible to calculate your risks, to estimate, to understand whether your business will work, in these conditions, whether it's worth, whether it's at all worth to invest, and to enter into this market, or maybe you have to choose another jurisdiction, so maybe your business model is not working for that market. So basically, the rules, the laws are those background, on which the business operates. And this gives you predictability. And this is basically the essence of investments. Without the rules, it will not work. So,
Absolutely.
So
This
that's
is
why I call it opportunity rather than.
It's a very pragmatic approach. And I think that this is the approach that you would recommend Ukrainian businesses take when they enter European market.
And if necessary, hire those people who know how this market works, and they help you.
This is excellent. Can I ask you the same question, but from a different angle? So you help businesses to enter the market, grow, scale, offer them business models, go-to-market strategies. How you can market them also as the leaders of reconstruction in Ukraine, so that it's a two-way street?
Again, we'll be referring to what Yaroslava, because her speech was very comprehensive, actually, very correlative with the ideas I had. So I think that those businesses which were already founded and will be founded in European Union by Ukrainians will definitely take part and will be the leaders of reconstruction of Ukraine, actually. First of all, from the perspective that they already know the rules of European Union, and we will soon, we hope soon, maybe not 2027, I don't know how many people we can vote, how many people believe in 2027, but maybe better. We will become the member of European Union, and we will receive access to the single market. So the businesses which operate here will already know the rules, so it will be easier for them to transform, to integrate, also, of course, into Ukrainian market, because currently in Ukraine, Ukrainian businesses, they are concerned. They are concerned about what it takes, what rules will come, what investments they will need to also put into making themselves compliant, with those rules. While European businesses, they will be already they will already know the rules, and they will already work based on those rules. The other aspect is, of course, technologies. We are all looking for technologies. We see how how quickly the world, the businesses are changing. Again, obvious example is defense. Just because, really, I'm quite deeply working now in different projects in defense. And if, for example, about a year ago, people who work in drone industry, in aerial flying drone industry, they were saying that the software is changing every 1-2 months. Now they say it's 1 week. So 1 week. And the enemy already knows, how to counter strike. So it doesn't make sense to use the same technology. You have to change. You have to change every week. So basically, for those businesses who are working here, they have more capacity. They have access to new technologies, to R&D. Here, there are so many programs which support the startups, the R&Ds in different scales. So all these new technologies will be brought to Ukraine. And we all know this motto, building back better. So we are not to build the same, as it was like 10, 20 years ago, but we will be building based on new innovative technologies. So we will be building the new future, future Ukraine.
Well, this is great. And I want to come back to Yaroslava, but I'd like to frame the question before you take the microphone, because I really like Larisa, what you said is basically the key message is that we must stay ahead of the curve. We must stay ahead of the curve. We are staying ahead of the curve. Very positive message. Yaroslava, let's take advantage of our European Union colleagues present here in the audience and say, what they can practically do to allow Ukraine and Ukrainian businesses to stay ahead of the curve, Ukrainian professionals, to stay ahead of the curve, but also what they can practically do to ensure that the businesses are very competitive using the human capital, Ukrainian human capital that is now in the European Union.
It's a very, very relevant question. I just wanted to reflect one point, what Larisa mentioned. This is indeed, we are very decisive in our actions as a business community, in Ukraine, and we decide pretty quickly in entering something, doing something. And this is exactly something opposite what we see when it comes to EU companies. Not the defense sector, they can be pretty active because they understand that this is their cup of tea, if I may say so. This is about technology, innovations, know-how, and so on. But in many other cases, they are a little bit sleepy, and our example as a business community, we can showcase how we can be profit positive in Ukraine, because we have a number of cases of successful business. They are thinking rapidly, dynamic, and generally speaking, these collaborations, joint ventures, they give the possibility to have this graduate membership states before having a full status of member in EU, because I really believe that we don't need to wait when Ukraine becomes the EU member. EU companies can need already to think about how to be integrated into the environment of Ukraine for the recovery, because this is not only about regulatory environment, also about people, about mapping stakeholders, about understanding the rules of the game that definitely should be equal for everybody. And this is generally speaking what business association is doing, because what we try to help, we are a voice of business, and we communicate all bottlenecks and drawbacks that we see from inside to help their company outside and our partners outside to think precisely about Ukraine as a partner. And we already now see that EU countries, they see Ukraine as a partners. And answering your question about professionals, I guess that Ukrainians outside Ukraine, very frequently meet our people in other EU companies, and they are our ambassadors. They are a strong force that convince their board of directors, the leadership of the companies, that Ukraine is the market where you can see opportunities, not only scary news that of course it's unsecure situation can be there, but you can overcome and you can know how to do that. And these professionals are our strengths point of differentiation in EU, I guess, as a strong diaspora.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And before we close, we're going to move on to the second part of the panel and talk a little bit about the civil society, temporary protection on the ground, and how, the expectations, the uncertainty. However, if you allow me, I really like to touch base specifically on women entrepreneurs and women-led businesses in the EU. So your reflections of how, and I'll give you an example. I'm a co-founder of a company, and we we're part of the Women Tech EU. It was a European Union funded, very successful project with the success rate of 4.2%. So the gap between the applications, and there were 3,792 applications received for funding, specifically for female-led businesses, including Ukrainian businesses, and only 160 got funded. No, so if you would recommend the European Commission, the European Innovation Council, other businesses to ensure that women-led businesses, Ukrainian businesses, women entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs from Ukraine are more visible in the European Union, are better integrated, what that would be. Larisa, you can start, or Yaroslava, that's the question to both of you.
Go ahead.
Recommendations, European Commission. This is what
It's a
we like to
complicated
give.
task. That's why I want to wait.
So first of all, maybe I start with my own story. Yeah, I'm not an entrepreneur per se, but being a partner, yeah, I'm also co-owner, yeah, of business, yeah, of EY business. I have a share. So in 2022, we crossed the border between Ukraine and Poland by foot, with my son, with my cat, with my manager, yeah, who works in my team, and her 2 children and cat. And then I recalled I know German language, yeah. That's why I called German partner from EY Germany on Saturday, by the way. And the first question I asked was, will you give me the work? Yeah, will you give me a job? Yeah, I was not asking like, will you take care of my son, of my cat, of anything else, only about job. And I think this is the thinking of like majority of Ukrainian women, yeah, men as well, yeah, but we're talking now about women. Like Ukrainian women are for work, yeah, for job. They want to be visible, they want to lead. And this is absolutely clear now also in Ukraine. By the way, we, EY, like my team now, we are working with EBRD, and we are doing a comprehensive study of women-led businesses in Ukraine and how to better support them in Ukraine. And this is probably my first like ask, yeah, not recommendation, yeah, we're not official.
Ask is great.
Yeah, to support women in Ukraine, yeah, because there are so many stories, yeah. We are now doing these focus groups. We are talking to entrepreneurs, yeah, who are working in Ukraine, and we've heard so many stories how they started businesses, yeah, during the war, how they learned something new, absolutely new, yeah, because the business collapsed, yeah, because it doesn't make for some businesses it didn't make any sense anymore to run them during the war, so they stepped into absolutely new area. Or for example, their husbands or relatives were conscripted and they stepped into CEO role or owner role, and this is like absolutely new role for this woman. And there are a lot of ways how we can support them. This, of course, are not only grants, yeah, so grants are available in different kinds, but these are not only, yeah, it's the knowledge support, even some kind of empowerment, even such forums, yeah, they are also important for such women. And by the way, interesting is that the average age of the woman now applying for loan for their business, yeah, for their own business is 47 years. Yeah, for me, it was quite a surprising age, but you understand, yeah, probably, yeah, everybody can reflect on their own, but this is an interesting number, yeah, because it looks like this woman is already like, she has probably made some career, maybe in one sector, but now she's switching, yes, she's switching to something new, she's starting up something new. And at this point, exactly when she needs support.
It's interesting that you mentioned the age, because there was just last week a research released in Ukraine that the employers and the corporations in particular are looking at the workforce at 50 plus, because that also tells you it's a good news, because, like you can say that, yes, we are trying to fight ageism, but it's also bad news because it means that well, human capital is lacking in Ukraine, and it's a big challenge. Yaroslava, back to you.
You're absolutely right. This is exactly what we experience in European Business Association as well. Women leadership for EBA. Okay, if you look at our management and our team, you will understand that we are very women positive. I mean that we have almost a lot of ladies in management and in the team of European Business Association, that is 70 plus people. I guess that what is, it will not be a specific recommendation, maybe. Maybe also one brief example from my side and from our side as EBA. In 2022, we decided not to wait for some additional support or finding some additional money. We decided to start Global Business for Ukraine Association in absolutely another jurisdiction as a business community that will unite and connect companies outside Ukraine to be the ambassadors of Ukraine and attract them for bilateral relations with our country and for advancements. Generally speaking, we just decided we do that, and we started to do that. This is complicated task, to be honest, but we are really proud with our geography of Switzerland, Belgium, Poland, Austria, Germany, Spain, I guess, yes. So we are quite proud with that. But what I want to say, our women, they are brave enough, as well as our men. They are fantastic. They are brave enough. When it comes to the support at the EU level, you guys do a lot of fantastic instruments and tools, and you have a lot of programs for very different businesses and different size and gender equality and so on. Sometimes it can be too complicated to understand how to apply. Maybe simplifying or making the investment into capacity building of knowledge of how to do that, how to apply for financing and so on. This will simplify this complicated procedure.
Excellent. Another positive message: investment in human capital of Ukraine and in education, empowerment. And here, I think it's a very good segue to you, Miroslava. Unfortunately, it's very unfortunate that you're only joining us on screen, but we are very happy to have you. We actually did a similar panel at the University of Economics, at the High School of Economics in Poland, that turned a little bit of a debate that everyone stood on the right side of things. But, like we were talking and couldn't finish the conversation. It was for 2.5 hours because we engaged also academics and we engaged the journalists. And one of the topics of that discussion that kind of, the silver line was indeed diaspora, risks, uncertainty, anti-migration rhetorics. So a lot of questions. And we also talked about education, and I need to say that Ukraine House Foundation is also having a Ukrainian school, full-fledged Ukrainian school since 2022 in Poland. So a lot of things on your plate, Miroslava, but let's start with the risks. Yeah, let's start with that question that also came up in most of the opening remarks of the temporary protection. So what you see when you talk to the communities, what are their key messages? What are their feedback in terms of the implementation of the recommendation 16 and generally the phase out of the temporary protection?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. I'm really sorry not to be in Brussels and in the Ukrainian house. It is nice that you are in the Ukrainian house in Brussels. I am in Ukrainian house in Warsaw. So I also glad that we can talk about the situation. And today in Poland, we are in the first day when the temporary protection directive is finished. You can say from today, there is a new law which started to work. It's a law that, let's say, cancels or stops the temporary protection for the Ukrainian refugees in Poland. And this law, on one hand, prolongs the legal status of the Ukrainian refugees, but on the other hand, it limits access to the social care, to the medical care, for the most vulnerable people. It makes difficult to the people with disabilities, elderly people who do not formally work, to get access to these services. And it's for us, it's a one of the risks, which we are really afraid for the eviction of people from the collective shelters, especially those who are not able to work, because it was mentioned about this. And we need to state that majority of Ukrainian refugees in Poland work. It's like 80%, and they earn money, so they pay social benefits, so they have access to the medical care, all the services, because they pay taxes. So we have the small number of people who are not able to work with different reasons, sometimes will never be able to work. So we can think about this, some kind of solidarity with those the most vulnerable. So it's not even hundreds of thousands, it's tens of thousands, so it's not a big number. And also we have the data from Deloitte and UNHCR report that Ukrainian refugees pay like 5 times more to the Polish budget, and then they receive with help. So this also shows that there is a kind of pluses of having refugees in Poland. And I think it's also case in other countries, because many Ukrainian refugees, these are mainly women, work, and they need to work to sustain themselves. So this is a problem, and I feel that it also could be a big challenge, not only for the state, but also for organizations like ours, because people trust us and they come to us for support, but we are not the state. We don't have all the means the state has. So this is a big challenge. And also from the pluses from this phasing up of this temporary protection is that there is a provision of the permanent solution. So for instance, Poland created such a solution that holders of the temporary protections, they can apply for the special residence card, it's called SUK. And it can be, when they receive the positive decision, they will be legal 3 years. So it helps them it gives them some stability, some like prolonging of the legal status, and they also will be able to work, and all these benefits they can access when they work. But the problem is with that the system doesn't work. So the idea was that people can apply for that via online tools. This online system was promised to work like 1.5 years ago. It didn't start it yet, and we don't know when it will start. So in this sense, when we talk about recommendations, I think the idea that Polish government thinks about the more permanent solutions, some that also how to make people predictable, also predictable future, but the minus is the system is not ready. So I think the recommendation is to create the system that works, and then give some perspective, because as it was said in the opening remarks, the temporarity is a big problem for people. If they have to wait each 5 months for prolongation of their stay, whether their stay will be prolonged, what will happen with them. I think it's a big challenge, and especially in the situation when we have war in Ukraine, it gives much stress to the people when they need to be secured and confident in the future.
Thank you, Miroslava. Can I bring in Alina to this and maybe just to share notes? So how do you feel, the same question, how do you feel that it's working here? Implementation-wise.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you for your invitation for such interesting conference. Yes, so let's talk a little bit about the same situation in Belgium. So our team, mobile team, Ukrainian Voice, work with new arrived people and with the beneficiaries of temporary protection in Belgium. And what's important to know that Ukrainians today need more clear information, legal information, correct and full information about legal status, because future legal status after the temporary protection will stop, because this give possibility for people to plan their future and to maybe to start something new, because a lot of students like start their own life there in Belgium, and it's important and difficult time to choose the correct and good way. Yes, and also yes, like uncertainty is the biggest problem, I think. because-
Uncertainty.
Uncertainty,
Yeah.
yes, the
Mhm.
biggest problem, because this affect the decision and maybe future life for a lot of Ukrainians, not only in Belgium, I think in all Europe, because a lot of countries have already started to change the status, like not temporary protection, but for some other type of residence permit, and Belgium still not. And also important problem that the government don't like don't give clear, visible explanation of possible ways or possible transits pathways to change the legal status for the future.
So this is exactly, I think, that what was said in the beginning. The gap, the protection gap,
Yes.
is already existing. So the gap between the policy discussions and the implementation is already there. So the question is that, like, okay, well, how much time we have to close that gap? Alina.
How much time? I'm not sure. I think we can do something till for March 2027. Yes, and we have not so much time to study the languages, to make equivalence of our diplomas, because we know that Ukrainians are high educated, high skilled peoples, and right now a lot of them are not able to find the good equal job equal to the qualification, and it's a big problem because Ukrainians cannot like change the, for example, change the residence permit on the qualification level maybe. And as for me, it's also big problem. And if the government would change the possibility to or maybe simplification of the process of equivalent of diplomas equivalence doing for Ukrainians.
Thank you for that. We're actually closing the loop of the recommendations given by Dr. Sonbury. And what we have is, the protection gap is already there. Yeah. Well, yes, the permits might have been simplified, but you cannot obtain them, as Miroslava said. Then we have other challenges that are already in place and are not addressed. So Miroslava, I'm coming back to you. Miroslava surprised me one day, because this is the question about diaspora and the role of diaspora, of how actually implement the recommendations. But I'll tell you, I was an international public servant, and I never considered myself a diaspora, and I lived abroad for 15 years. And Miroslava was the one who came to me and said, like, you're also diaspora. And I was frozen, because, well, I guess, we all, the definition of diaspora is changing. So how we can use the new definition of diaspora in addressing all of these challenges, Miroslava?
Well, the question is very difficult, I would say. On one hand, I think that now in Ukraine it's used global Ukrainians, the idea that because diaspora in a way, it's maybe we together with you we are diaspora, but also not all refugees, Ukrainian refugees, consider themselves as a diaspora. But still, I would say that we as a global Ukrainian community, we are those bridges about which we said today, that we live in other countries host countries, but also we have strong ties with Ukraine, and especially during the full-scale invasion, it also became very important how deep we are involved and how deep we are connected to Ukraine. And because many of us has relatives, friends, at Ukraine, in Ukraine. So for us, the good, the working for the Ukrainian victory and also for the building the coalitions in the host countries in which we live to support Ukraine are crucial. So I would say now maybe I would address one issue about which we talked maybe before today's discussion, and the danger we face now as a Ukrainian House and as a Ukrainian women leaders in Poland. So recent year, I would say 1 year ago, it started. We are under attack of Russia propaganda. So it means that nowadays, each 3 to 4 days, we found out that we have fake accounts on the social media. We have I have many deep fake videos where I say provocative issues, and also somebody sends letters to the state authorities, to the local authorities in my name, also provocative emails that also have some trigger messages to provoke Poles to hate Ukrainians. So it's kind of the idea is to show Ukrainian women leaders, because majority of these cases it's to me, to other women leaders in Poland, to show us as dangerous, provocative, ungrateful, all these kind of stereotypes that are again about migrants, but especially about Ukrainians. And it makes, the target is, the goal is to make us as enemy, and also to justify why Poles should not support Ukraine. And this is very dangerous, because it's also that we have the issue of faking also state authorities accounts, or making false state look like accounts on X, Meta, on Facebook, X, TikTok, Telegram, all the possible social media. So I think it's a big danger, and it requires us as a diaspora also, because we can see what is the Russian propaganda, how to find out what is it, what are those hidden messages, how they are played. And I think we could be the good expert for the experts in these host countries, because they very often don't see it. They don't see these messages, how they are involved in this, let's say, in these narratives in these countries, that they have trigger messages also. So for us, I think we can be experts in that, and also we need to work together. And maybe this is not the answer for your question, but still what I see as a need, I think we should do in this sphere, we should learn from each other, because maybe it started from Poland, but now they will change to Brussels, to Belgium, especially if there will be next elections, because usually this is around elections. And also we need to collaborate with this special services in each country to send them also the evidences of this hate speech, disinformation, to show how it works, and also to make them cooperate, because in other cases we had fake domains, fake emails registered, for instance, in Netherlands. But it's kind of hard to find those who are guilty, who do it. It needs to cooperation of EU states. So for us, maybe the cooperation between Ukrainian organizations, also cooperation in the special institutions, each country who fight disinformation, and then also to somehow pressure the big providers like X, Meta, to limit the hate speech, disinformation on the platforms, and also to fight with that.
Thank you, Miroslava. Can I take that, because this is important, and we've been discussing with Miroslava disinformation a lot. Miroslava is working also with other Ukrainian and Polish organizations to address this issue and reduce the space for anti-Ukrainian rhetorics. I wanted to just put you on the spot a little bit on the same question. Do you feel that Ukrainian businesses are facing similar problems as civil society? Growing space for anti-migration rhetoric, anti-Ukrainian rhetoric, how they're dealing with this?
Can I? Yes. First of all, I would like to mention that what Miroslava pointed out is really very important part of hybrid war as well, because this information, this is not only the part of counterpart with Ukraine. Generally speaking, this is some kind of developing hateness inside different countries to different groups of people, be it Ukrainians or be it some other category of people, of race, of professions, of who cares? It can be what you can mention. I guess that in this direction, what is really important is educational element to understand how to work with the disinformation and how to develop a critical thinking in this direction. When it comes to businesses, when it comes to business operating in Ukraine, they are quite knowledgeable about the situation that is going on. They have their internal units who can also seek for justification of certain information, who understand the complex of some questions, rhetorics, and so on and so on. I guess it's a little bit more complicated when it comes to businesses outside Ukraine. Because what they observe, generally speaking, general news available for everybody. And it's not always positive. It's very often negative, yes. And very often it's dramatic and at some point, it's discreditation of Ukraine as a reliable country. Yes, of course, we have a number of questions and reforms we need to deal with. And as Larissa mentioned, the reforms are going. The fight in corruption is an important element. But okay, I guess that in all countries in EU, the corruption is also a case. And we all deal with it. And we understand their proactive steps and effective tools that should be implemented. So this is important part. And maybe if I may, just a very brief point, in my humble opinion, I am not a very deep expert in refugee policies and transition from temporary protection to some permanent statuses. But I guess what was mentioned that it should be some kind of leadership. At the EU level, somebody who give recommendations, a frame, and understanding in what direction we move. As you mentioned, it was very important to have these some lines to ensure that the bare minimum standards should be taken into account in different countries. Otherwise, it can be the situation that we can miss some important rights, guarantees for vulnerable category of people.
Thank you, Yaroslava. Touching upon leadership, we are going into the global geopolitical discussion connected to that. So hopefully we can do it through during the networking, because I'm sure that that's like on the mind of everyone. Larissa, would you like to come in on that?
Yes, I wanted to add a couple of points to what Yaroslava
Not geopolitics.
said. As usual, yeah, I agree with everything what Yaroslava said. But also from my perspective, again, about businesses which are operating in EU, but founded by Ukrainians. We all need to understand that here we compete with everybody, yeah, with the whole world, yeah, not only with EU. Like, again, yeah, so sorry for bringing my own example, yeah, but in EY, yeah, for 17 years, I've made a career, yeah, I became a partner. I came to Germany, like I entered the room where the partners from my department were. First of all, they were like give me, I will give you a proportion, like 100 partners, 98 of them were men, 2 women. I'm not joking. Yeah, I'm not joking. 2 women, one of them me. Yeah, so you understand the level of competition. Then the other conditions apply. Yeah, the level of knowledge of laws, of language. Yeah, like when I came here, they told me you cannot work with our businesses because you don't know Dutch at native level. Yeah. So and so on. Yeah, so for businesses, this applies as well. Yeah, so you are competent. And also in different markets, we talked about that before. There are different rules. And of course, there is some protection mechanism. In some markets, I've even heard that they've introduced the proportion of native citizens that have to work in your business. Even if it is a small business, then you have to employ the citizens of that country. Yeah, so even if you're Ukrainian and so on. Yes, so this is important to understand. And be ready to work in this condition.
And communicate to the host country.
Negotiate, communicate, create alliances, joint ventures, and so on.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Larissa. Alina, you'd like to come in on that because I had more questions too. Please.
Sure. I want to add something. Like I want to mention that all these things are possible, like disinformation or gathering not true information, like misunderstanding of some part. It can it exists because all these points are exist because of lack of good and good coordination, correct coordination between different institutions, between migration authorities, between social support systems, between employer services. Sometimes people want to like to search information in different places, and because of absence of this like specific one center when they can find correct good information on each step, can prove that exists disinformation from intelligence artificial, from social media, from different sources.
What we can do about it as Ukrainian community, as diaspora, as women leaders?
So what we can do, first of all, we can like ask for better coordination between different institutions, and for providing this information for the people, because sometimes it's different to find correct place for correct information. And second one, maybe it's like something like one-stop support center, when you where you can come, ask something, and receive a correct good informational support. Yes, individual informational support.
This is excellent. We're talking about the implementation on equal footage of migration policies. And here I also would like, to ask the last question, or the same question actually that Alina brought up and prompted on what we can, before I open the floor, please think about the questions. I'll open the floor after this. What we can do all together, collectively, private sector, entrepreneurs, civil society, Ukrainian communities, a Ukrainian mother that moved out of Ukraine, to reduce the space for disinformation and actually assist and address the problems that we've been discussing. Miroslava?
Sorry, I didn't know that it's for me. Well, it's I think in each level. So maybe I say that what we do, I started to communicate with also here in Poland with the people who are experts in different spheres, like fighting hate speech, who have expertise in working in with these big companies, digital companies. So we to learn what is the practical steps, how we can how can we fight the cases of disinformation, or what we can lobby to change the law, so to be able to look for those who work and who create these deep fakes and disinformation in Poland. So this is one thing. Another, I think this is also work with the politicians, because in our case, in our context, and I think in general in many European countries nowadays, the populists look for the support and using very populist, nationalist rhetorics, which is unfortunately also anti-Ukrainian. So I think it's for us at least to work with those who can be, who can have strong voice saying no to that. And it's very difficult, because even liberal and politicians in other contexts also play with this right-wing card, because they think it will bring them more advance in or more successes in the next election. So this is a big challenge, but still I think it's worth to look for the allies. And if you are a mother with a child, I think also if you see, or if you also see some kind of disinformation, so to inform about that, also to, if there is a hate speech, to say the report to police also. So there are many spheres in which you can work, from the small steps, or also if you speak with the friends and they say, you see that they are under influence of propaganda, of Russian propaganda, you just can say, look, this is not that, there is data on that. We in the time when the facts have no meaning, unfortunately, but still we can use them and try to convince those who don't believe in facts.
Thank you, Miroslava. The task is daunting because the World Economic Forum named misinformation as a number one global challenge to democratic development in democratic countries. So the task at hand is really, really huge. So we really need to work together. I think that what I've got from all of the speakers on this part is that we cannot afford to do nothing. And here, I'd like to ask you to give a round of applause to all of the panelists for their contributions. And oh, thank you. That's the ovation. And now the floor is yours. So I would really like to ask you to formulate questions in a brief way and introduce yourself, because we really want to know who you are, where you come from. And we will take 3 questions first and give the opportunity to answer and then see how we do on time. Are there any questions? Because I can go nonstop because there are so many issues that we'd like to discuss. Please go ahead, and the rest, please don't be shy. I'll give you the microphone.
Thank you. My name is Uliana. I'm from Haarlem, Netherlands, representing Haarlem for Ukraine, also organization, a civil society organization. Unfortunately, Mr. Martin has left, but that would be ideal question for him regarding this aligned conditions for people across the European Union, which is not true now. I mean, it's quite different. And then we talk about private sector in the Netherlands, for example, it's still not allowed for people who visit temporary protection. And it's like direct, I think, human rights almost violation. And this is like how, of course, if you worked in an international business, you can quite easily, relatively easily to find a job. But if you like being an entrepreneur in Ukraine and now you want to start a business in Netherlands, it's legally not possible at all. So do we have, you can do it, but it's in a gray zone. Of course, like many people have opened the business already, but from the European Union, it's like, how do you know, or like who should be in charge, or I don't know, like to influence this particular point?
Thank you for your question. Can I take another question? Can I see another hand in the room? Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you very much for this interesting discussion. My name is Valeria and I'm Ukrainian naturally, and I have lived in Germany. I studied and graduated in Master of Public Policy there. I have worked across institutions, civil society in Ukraine, European institutions. So I'm a young professional and I'm still searching for a job. And my question, of course, is concerned about people like I am, young women in their 20s, who have acquired a master's degree in European universities, but struggle with finding a job, like endless internships, lack of access to junior positions, these transition gaps that you were mentioning. For example, in order to come for me from Germany, I had a temporary protection in Germany, but I had to have a D visa in order to work in the parliament. And I have waited for 3 months to obtain it, and I couldn't plan my stay here. So like it added up hurdles for me, of course. And after my traineeship, I need to reapply for temporary protection, meaning I needed to cancel it in Germany to go again to Cologne, you know. And as my experience working in institutions in Germany, in national institutions in Germany, communal ones, also here in European institutions themselves, they have a really complicated framework to work with. And only if the professionals who are working in institutions are pioneers of change, if they want to change something, there are a lot of space to change the things for the refugees, for the better. But people who work in institutions are not exactly interested into that.
That's an interesting angle. Thank you. Thank you for your question. I promised 3 questions, but Valeria already asked like 5 of them. I'll try to sum up.
Sorry.
Thank you. No, we'll take one more. We'll take one more and then we'll take it back to the panel. Thank you, Valeria.
Well, thank you for the session, first of all. My name is Olga. I'm originally Ukrainian living in the Netherlands. I'm for 11 years, so I work in tech sector, namely for Microsoft at the moment. And I'm studying at Oxford and I'm focusing on AI in military. And then so the question that I wanted to ask, because the hybrid war has sparkled my interest. So I would want to ask, so what were the outcomes of the attacks, cyber attacks, hybrid war, kind of cases that you had, and whether your collaboration with big tech was successful? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, that's an excellent question because we really didn't do justice to the role of innovation. So we've got quite plenty of ground to cover, starting with the permits and the opening of business in the European Union, misalignment of regulations, exactly what you were talking about during the opening session, that shouldn't happen is already happening full speed. We've have a question from Valeria about what young women from Ukraine can do to actually enter, simplify these procedures and align, but also very importantly, the question about the motivation of public servants in the Commission, in the European institutions to actually make it happen and make change happen. And finally, the big tech question, which I don't need to repeat. Whoever feel which question you'd like to take, please.
Would you like somebody to be the first? No, it's okay. Okay, I didn't remember everything, but I will try to address some points because I indeed liked all the questions you mentioned. I will start from their disinformation maybe and trusted AI technology, because this is something you mentioned about Davos, about World Economic Forum, and I attended several events there, and generally speaking, and this is the topic in so many houses in Switzerland. I mean, in Davos during the World Economic Forum, it was in the Ukrainian house, in the Swiss house. It was simply in the air about the trust to technologies and whether we can be sure that what we get in is exactly the correct, is exactly about the truth, how we can challenge that, and how we can get the relative information we would like to observe and make our conclusions, our actions forward, and so on. I guess that in this direction, it's very important, and in EU, this process is going on. This is the AI Act that is a really important piece of legislation, and generally speaking, a lot of in the air in terms of working with artificial intelligence, deep fakes, disinformation, and so on. And I guess that even during the Munich conference, they mentioned about trusted platform with the big tech companies like Google, CAP, and some other players to work with disinformation, trusted AI, and so on and so on. So I don't have the answer to your question exactly, but I believe that this is some questions super important, and big players, and not only big players, but also their people in their officials, they will work with that, because this is a sovereignty. This is the question of the sovereignty of different countries as well. If I may, I pick one question.
See, I asked the questions to be brief. I didn't ask the speakers to be brief. So I'm doing it now, please.
Yes, very briefly. I guess about their young lady, about the youth and their the future. You need to be self-motivated enough and knock enough doors, and some doors will be opened. Generally speaking, I'm sure that this is not about their undesire to help Ukrainians and so on. This is some difference in our mentality. We used to quick decisions, we used to quick actions. Not all EU countries and people in EU countries, they can be more precise in, more conscious in decision-making process. So I don't know how exactly to help, but you need to knock the door and you move in the right direction.
And so can I misuse my position as a moderator and share a personal story to respond to Valeria? How many of you remember that in the US visas, we had the spelling of our capital city incorrect? Yeah, yeah. How many of you were bothered by the fact that the spelling was incorrect? Yeah. You know that now it's actually the spelling is correct. It's Kyviv. And how it happened is that I worked for a big criminal conglomerate called USAID a long time ago. A long time ago, and there was a new ambassador coming into Kiev, and as a new ambassador, he was onboarding in Kiev, yeah, and as a new ambassador, he was onboarding, and he basically asked, like he was accompanied by his executive assistant, and they went to the park and they saw a banner that said Kiev, yeah, Kiev. And he said, like, wow, and then the assistant, a young woman, really young woman, said, you know what, it really bothers me because in the US visas, the spelling is incorrect. He said, like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So she explained the case. She made a pitch. He came back and he wrote a cable to Washington. And ever since, the spelling in the US visas is Kyviv because she took the courage, very young woman, to make a difference. So that's the story which I actually carry with me for already 15 years, because I think that this is the example of change that any of us can do. We just need to have a little bit of courage. So thank you. And I'll pass the floor back to, stop misusing my role as a moderator, and back to the panelists.
You have all the rights, all the human rights here. Actually, I also like all the questions. Probably I will take this Defense Miltech AI question offline. Yeah, if you want to talk to me, please approach me in the break. Yeah, after the panel. With regards to this discrimination, yeah, and rules, yeah, we talked about it before. I don't think it's possible that all countries in European Union, yeah, will unify their laws, unfortunately. But yeah, I didn't know, yeah, about the situation you described in the Netherlands. So it's absolute, yeah, discrimination in my opinion, because yeah, in our permits, for example, it's already written, yeah, that we have a right to work, yeah. So what does it mean? You cannot found a business. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, so yeah, we understood. We understood. It's not like we find the solution here because it's written in the law. You understand? So how you can make you can change a law? Yeah, probably we Ukrainians, because we do not.
That's important. That's important.
Speak.
Yes. Go ahead. Yeah.
So this is what I'm trying to talk about.
Thank you. Let's take turns. I suggest the following. So Larissa has her recipe and she will offer it to you, and then we will have a networking reception, and then we can take that forward, because here we have 5 more minutes left. Please, if you don't mind. Okay. Thank you. Back to you.
So there is a procedure for changing the law. Yeah. So you have to initiate this, and of course the deputies, yeah, who adopt the laws, yeah, they have to initiate it in the parliament, yeah, of the Netherlands. Yeah, I do not know all the whole details, yeah, but there is a whole procedures, and it should be, of course, also come from probably you, yeah, and our government, yeah, because this is G2G relationships in the first place. And then coming to the question of the young ladies and men, because I also have a boy, 18 years old, yeah, the same issues, and I also have a big crowd of relatives, yeah, of parents who are now trying to help their children to find their place here in the job market. So in the first place, maybe my advice also to approach the large corporations. We, like UI, for example, we are always in need for interns. Yeah, this is how our business model works. Yeah, so we always take in interns through the whole year. The second maybe advice and recommendation, yeah, for European Union, what I saw in UK. The government took a responsibility. They created a database of internship for young people. And you can, like any person can search for a place, yeah, for internship place. Here in neither countries I have seen this, yeah. So maybe it makes sense also to create such a database, and it will be easier.
databases, practical solutions. I share your frustration, by the way, because we've been waiting for the permit we still haven't got it. It's already been 18 months. So that's, so I hear the frustration, and I really encourage the conversation, because it takes a village to resolve that problem, or at least to start the conversation. So thank you for this input, very important, Alina, and then I'll give the floor to Miroslava, because she's very disciplinedly waiting with her hands up.
Yes, what can I add for all of this question about employed-based residence? It's like a lot of us hope for this residence permit or employed-based residence, or for young people it's education-based residence permit. But the biggest problem is the biggest problem, yes, it's not corresponding our diplomas, which we receive in Ukraine, to the law and in Europe. Yes, we are not able to apply for a lot of positions. That's why we are not able to work in the same field for common for us. Why these problems exist? I think because of temporary protection. Temporary protection, it's not common type of protection like for in Europe. That's why for today it does not exist correct and transparent pathway for transition from temporary protection to longer residence permit. And that's why all solutions or decisions need a lot of times. So for me, I have the same problem. I cannot work with my diplomas because like in Ukraine, I was I think like a lot of people there, the same problem. Qualification. In Belgium, I didn't receive still today the same qualification. It will be better to simplify the process of equivalations of our qualification for Ukrainians, especially. This will give possibility to find a good job and change the residence permission for Ukrainians.
Thank you, Alina. I think that we talked about qualification a lot. I see the Ed Watson here, I see a person who, from the mission of Ukraine, who'd like to have a few words on specifically coming on that issue, right, Pani Oksana? Yeah. So I would like to give the floor because we need to engage in this dialogue.
Well, in the absence of the representative of the European Commission, I feel compelled to comment on some issues that were raised. First, temporary protection is in place till March 2027, including in Poland. It has just changed. It hasn't been cancelled. What has changed, how it is translated into the national law. So we have unique situation across all 27 member states. Temporary protection is valid till March 2027. What is not equal and where we do see risks is how member states, based on the recommendations which were prepared by the Council, how they do this transition model and whether they will do it at the same time or differently. We have first case of Poland, who started this transition. At the same time, we see that in the rest of member states, they are lagging behind in preparation of this transition model. So just to explain for you that it's a nuance, but it matters. Also, this question raised by you about this problem with starting a business, we have a very nice platform, which is called Solidarity Platform, which unites European Commission, member states, and Ukraine, where we can raise questions about practical implementation of temporary protections. What problems do arise based on the differences in national legislations, because we have all sorts of problems, especially in care of children. So please, if you do have this problem, and if you feel that it is a big issue which affects Ukrainian community in Netherlands, yes, so please do make your case with our embassy in The Hague, and they are in touch with us. We have special communication with all our embassy where we exchange problematic cases, starting from, I don't know, using the national license, driver license across member states. It's very practical, but very important questions. So we pick up those questions, we bring them to this solidarity platform, and we can address them. So, well, last week, I think it would be, we can't expect that the national legislation across all 27 member states is unified. Yes, what we can strive for to make sure that this framework for our citizens is implemented as efficiently as possible. And we have instruments where we can discuss it and address and hopefully solve it. So
Thank you so much, because this is how I really wanted you to come in, because this is how it should be, you know, like the dialogue of all together, you know, like business, European, international guests, you know, the mission of Ukraine, civil society, representatives of the community. And I really wish that we have more opportunities like that. We have 2 more minutes, and I'd like to pass the floor to Miroslava to respond to any questions you'd like to take from the audience, from the mission as well, and we will close.
Thank you. I was like just comment for the last voice. I think I never thought the Polish case would be a success case. Usually we are as NGO commenting and criticizing this law because we had many big lists of comments which were not taken into account, especially when we think about the vulnerable groups. And actually for them, temporary protection ended yesterday. So this is, even if it is like the transitionary period, there are many, we are really afraid of eviction of people from the shelter, so for those with special disabilities, elderly people. So this is for us a big challenge, what will happen from today. I have signs that some people are under threat of eviction. So in a way, it's good. There are pluses, of course, that the legal stay is prolonged, but on the other hand, still for some, there is actually end of, in a way, some support. But this is good that Poland at least, and it's good to tell Polish politicians that they are ahead of all European Union, because then they maybe will be willing to do more. So, but I wanted to just say what Poland actually says made good. They give access to the labor market. So it meant also to the establishment to be self-employed, to establish the business. So I think this is a good practice, which is good to share in also other countries, because it worked well for Polish economy. And I think they also diminished the gray zone. So this, I don't know whether you will manage to lobby it in 1 year in Netherlands. It's a long process, but unfortunately, yeah, maybe, however, maybe. I would like to answer to this digital platforms question. We put the claims to the prosecutor office. We know that it's very difficult to cooperate and to get information from these platforms like Meta, especially the most difficult problem is with X. It doesn't give evidences, information even to the authorities. So it's very difficult to persecute those who start the disinformation campaigns, hate speech. It's a better cooperation with TikTok. They started to delete the accounts, the fake accounts, also the deep fakes. So we see that when we report, and I know that Polish authorities, when they report, those accounts disappear from the TikTok. It's a bit challenging with Meta. There are possibilities to report to Meta, but it's never clear what they will do. So there is a one-way process. So it's a big challenge how to work with them. I think this is also European Union task to make those platforms to be more to work to fight disinformation and hate speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Miroslava. And on this note, I really must end and finish this panel discussion, but it's not the end of our evening, because we'd like to invite you to a small networking all together in this beautiful building in the heart of decision-making processes of the European Union, and stay together, continue the dialogue. I'd like to once more ask you to thank yourselves for the participation and thank our panelists for their active contribution.
Women Leaders for Ukraine would like to present you with this publication. And Miroslava, your book is safe. It's also coming your way. I think that one message that really came across during the discussion is that we're all ambassadors. It's not, like something that all of us picked, but in the morning of the 24th of February, 2022, all of us took that role, willingly, unwillingly, knowingly or unknowingly, and we carry it wherever we are, in Ukraine, outside of Ukraine, in the European Union, raising our voice, raising the voice for those who cannot, those people in the shelters that Miroslava was mentioning. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone once again, and may the force be with us. Slava Ukraini! Дякую, Миросю.
Дякую.